Well, today my talk really is about, if I can get the screen up, establishing your quality roadmaps through quarterly service delivery reviews. And if you know me, I am the god of terrible, terrible named talks. So once again, I've done it. This is a terrible talk. But really, what is the point of this talk, right? The point is, as QE leaders, engineers, ICs, we know what we're supposed to do, but a lot of times our peers don't. And it's up to us to kind of drive quality, but how do we do this, when our partners and like engineering managers, CTOs, directors, maybe even support don't really align with us, right? So one of the mechanisms that I've seen work really well is what I call a quarterly service delivery review. And it's a tool that we QE can use to get that alignment, to drive forward what we should be doing and kind of convince our peers this is the right method. So a little bit about me. My name is Jeff. I'm a director of engineering. I work at a company called Iterable, and I own two teams, the quality engineering team and the operations team. A bit about background. I've been in QA for 17 years. Started off in San Diego, went to UCSD as a CS major. I worked in big startups, small startups, big companies, everything from healthcare to web security. I think the smallest I worked at was a company called Skylight Healthcare, which was acquired by GetWell. If you ever go into a hospital and turn on the TV and there's like push messages telling you to watch videos, that's us. There, I was a software QA engineer. I tested everything from hardware, software, builds. And I kind of started my management career there, managing deploys in the tier 3 support team. So engineering was about 10 people. So when I managed a tier 3 team, it was just me, basically. I moved to Portland. My wife came here. So I worked in Big Pink down the street. I worked for a company called iOvation, which did security. We were acquired by TransUnion. There I was kind of, a full stack automation engineer, back end, front end, end to end deploys. Eventually though, I was recruited to come to the Bay Area to work for an A/B experimentation company. And this was a Series C small company, maybe 75, less than 75 engineers. And they were really good. They had testing, their developers believed in quality, but they had no QE. And their reliability was terrible. They were having a lot of incidents. And the CTO was like, okay, we need to figure out someone that knows quality. So they kind of recruited me to come over to build a quality program. There, I built and led the QA team from 0 to 7. I eventually took over the TPM org and became the chief of staff there. Fast forward, Iterable, we're a MarTech company. We do marketing platforms for customers to kind of engage their customers across their journey. Basically, when you say you like Gap and they email you saying, hey, I know you like that pink sweater, it's on sale, that's us. So here I'm, once again, director of engineering. I own both the QA team and the ops. And I guess the last, I would say 5, 6, 7 years, I've been kind of in this position where, when you build QA programs and you're running engineering, you get to see quality intersect with business impact. And in order to really have your quality program not just guarantee a wonderful customer experience, but help you make engineering a more effective and efficient entity, right? You need to start learning some of the business mechanisms to get it done. AKA, what is the other side doing that works really well that maybe QE isn't doing well to get our point across? So let's dive in, right? Let's level set. QE generally does what I described as building a quality program, running a quality program, right? As quality leaders, what's our goal? We're supposed to ensure the features we build and deliver give customers the best experience. And that's it, right? Customers are happy because the quality is good. They're going to, keep buying your product. They're going to spend more money, right? And that's great. That means your company is going to do well. So as quality leaders, really everything we do should be driving that high satisfaction. And we do this pretty well in general, right? I mean, how does that work, right? We identify problems, right? We say, hey, what quality is hurting what's going on? What's hurting us, right? Do we understand the problem? And then we define success. Hey, what does good quality look like? Well, if we stop these bugs happening, they won't cause incidents. They won't cause incidents. Customers won't be upset. Customers won't be upset. They'll renew. And then once we identify that, we launch initiatives, right? We're like, hey, we know a technical solution, or maybe we need to launch a program. There's no requirements. That's why nothing gets done right. That's a quality problem. And then generally we review this data, right? We want to collect the data, collect the KPIs, and challenge ourselves. Did what I say I did actually make a difference? And this is iterative, right? We go back. We look, did what I say I'm going to do solve the problem? And if it solved the problem, good. If it didn't solve the problem, why not? Or what's changed? What's skilled? What do I need to do next time? So great. Like, is that it? Like, how hard is this, right? Like, nothing I'm saying here should be like novel. We all do this for our jobs. But why is this challenging, right? Why doesn't this happen? Why can't we execute? And I break it into four categories of why, in the last 17 years, I've seen struggle trying to drive a quality program, right? The first one, well, our peers don't understand quality, right? Our peers, our engineering managers, fellow engineers, tech leads, CTOs, they don't really understand like what does quality really mean. They have an idea of what the industry says. I'll give you some real examples that I've heard. I've had a CTO tell me, hey, testing isn't hard. Like you have engineers, we have incidents, write tests for every single page of the app. Do it. How hard could it be, right? You have engineers do it. Does that make sense to write tests for every single page? My engineering managers equate QE to testing only, right? They say, hey, we don't need your QA until they end the cycle. Then we can have them test, right? We don't really need them. Like, why are they in a room early? Or, I have a director of engineering say, hey, I just came back from a conference and guess what? I met this cool vendor. He promised me we can improve testing by 300%. Let's buy them. Don't worry. We don't need a headcount anymore. We can just use this tool. It'll magically solve all our problems, right? I don't know if anyone's ever heard these things, but these are real stories of that, or real things that people told me to my face. The second category is quality success is not clear, right? If engineering leadership doesn't standardize on what quality means, then you won't have alignment on what quality success is, right? I've had engineering leaders judge quality success very early on in my career. When I sat down with him, it was like promotion time. He's like, well, how are you doing, Jeff? Well, you only wrote 50 test cases this month. So, this other guy wrote 50, like 75. I think he's a better engineer than you. Really? That's how you define quality success, right? My organization is being judged by how many test cases are run or, how many test cases are passing. That's it. We can gamify that. High five, man. We're going to have the highest performing team. I tell my engineers, just write test cases, just make sure they pass, right? We can slow it down. We can say, hey, we're being judged by how many incoming test bugs. Slow down the release. I don't care, right? That's how I'm getting paid. We do it. So success is not clear. And if we don't know how to measure quality success, we're in trouble, right? So does your metrics align with your high-level OKRs? Does your boss, who's being graded on doing a successful engineering company, like engineering organization, is he actually aligned with you? Does his high-level OKRs match what's important in reliability, right? How do you determine if your engineers are actually releasing better code? And bottom line, does your success actually align with measuring customer happiness? Because once again, what is the point of what you're building? If your customers aren't happy, who cares? Where are you going to go? Third category is alignment's off, right? Resource alignment's off. This one actually kills me every day because once again, QEs tends not to be the biggest organization. We're always kind of small. We're always underfunded, right? And if your alignment's off, you're in trouble. These are great things or not great things that I've had managers tell me, right? What does your org do if you're not writing test cases, right? My engineers are busy coding. Can't you guys just write all the automation? Like, aren't you guys the end-to-end specialists? Just you do it. Why do our engineers have to do it? Teams don't follow the SDLC, right? I asked them like, hey, did you write acceptance criteria? Where's your test plans? Oh, we don't have time. We'll write in our PRs. What? How does that work, right? And what happened to shift left? I found some teams during incidents. I'm like, well, the root causes we didn't test is where's your unit testing? Oh, we didn't have time. How does that happen? So this boils down to this last challenge, right? As quality leaders, we know what we're supposed to do. We have a North Star. How do we communicate this strategy to our leadership team, to our peers, to our company? How do we make sure this works, right? Do we, you know, how do we get them to align with us, right? And then if we know we need to fundamentally shift and create a new initiative, right? A lot of times this will class in prioritization. There's only so many things we can do. How do we get a quality initiative up there as a PO, right? Like a priority 1 or priority 0, right? How do we compete against product? How do we compete against other things? And then this concept of buy-in, right? It's not just quality engineering, it's not a product engineering, but sometimes it's reliability engineering, sometimes it's SRE, sometimes it's support. How do you get all of these organizations to listen to usually the smallest team in engineering? So, like I promised, one of the things that I learned was a tool that's actually from go-to-market, right? They do something called a quarterly business review or a service delivery review. And when I was in these meetings, I was like, damn, why aren't we doing this? This is huge, right? And this is a mechanism that seems silly, that seems like unnecessary, but what I found is done correctly, it's a really, really, really powerful tool to be able to say, this is what's important, this is why we're going to do it, and drive alignment across the organization that we're all going to follow along and do this. So let's dive into it. What is a quarterly service delivery review? Basically, it's a feedback loop. It's a meeting. I'm not going to lie. It's once a quarter, you have a meeting, but the meeting is a feedback loop, right? And this goal is to facilitate a quantitatively oriented discussion between your customer and delivery team. So inside this meeting, for mine, quality, I have usually the CTO, my engineering managers, directors, head of support, we may have a GTM person. But the goal is we're going to talk about fitness for purpose of service, which is quality. What is our quality here? And are we serving our customers with this quality, both external and internal? And we're going to talk about how we do this. What mechanisms? Are we doing this correctly? Is it working? What should we do? Lastly, we're going to challenge people. Hey, we know what to do. We're going to do it, right? We're going to set, how are we going to align from top down that as an organization, we're going to do this? And did we do it correctly? So, sorry for those in the back. Text might be a little small, but how does a service delivery work? It's not just a meeting. It's the whole quarter. It's the whole year. There's cycles to this. Before you even start your service delivery review, right? You're constantly deciding what's important, right? What indicators matters? Right? What does quality mean to us? How do we measure quality, right? What do we care about? And once we do that, it's easy. We baseline, we capture it, we trend, right? We collect this information. We have dashboards. And once we have this information, it kind of sets our North Star. We know as a quality organization where we need to go. We have a lot of incidents. Why do we have a lot of incidents? We can capture that because we don't have tests. I'm using a really basic one, right? So what happens? We don't have tests. We need to build tests, not just QE, but engineers need to write unit tests. So when we go into our SDR, we can present this information, right? We can say something like, hey, we've had 17 incidents because we had no unit testing in this area. If we keep releasing, guess what's going to happen? We're probably going to have 17 more. And how much is that costing us? Once you share that information, you discuss service delivery, right? Like, hey, what should we do? I think we should write tests. I think you should write tests. This is how we want to measure it. This is our new OKR. Let's align on this. And then after SDR, we launch, right? For the rest of the quarter, we have our quality roadmap. We discuss why we're doing this, what it is, and how we're going to do it. So we implemented those changes, right? Now we expect teams to be doing this. And then we want to capture it, right? What happened? Did it work? Did it not work? Why didn't it work? Let's iterate. And then go back to next quarter, review it again. So in this meeting, and this is pretty critical because you don't have much time, right? There's 4 sections that kind of lead you to where you should go. The first section really is just the appetizer, right? It's a recap. How are you doing last quarter? Did you get what you needed finished or not? First section, the first part of this, quality KPI, this is where you start going in, right? This is where you lay your groundwork. You could give a quick definition of each KPI that you're collecting and the business impact. Really important, the metric and why this matters for your company. Then you recap the data. How did we do this quarter? Highlight trends. What did we do good? What's bad? What's costing us money? What's costing us engineers? And then you provide this data, the root cause. So this is the setup. Then you go into the state of QA. This is where I get to roadmap, right? I get to say, hey, I have this many QA engineers. We're going to fix this, right? We're going to introduce what we're going to do this quarter, why this is important, why we need to prioritize this work. And I'm going to highlight areas of risk. If we don't do this, how much more customers do we want to churn? You choose. The last section, I think, is the most important. This is the one that, being in kind of leadership roles, I've learned a lot about. And it's the discussion portion. This is something that most QEs, well, I would say, at least me, before I got into this role, I did poorly. I never did this, right? And the discussion section is when you bring people together. You highlight big quality initiatives that matter, showcase the business impact, and present the problems itemized. The goal here is you're trying to get people who aren't talking to discuss a problem, push a solution, and get them to align, right? Your call to action, what are you trying to do, and get there. So this is a service delivery flow in a nutshell. Now, let's dive in, right? Before you run your quality service review, I mentioned the most important is your data, the baseline, right? What metrics do you care about? What are you going to use to drive your North Star, right? Without data, you have nothing. Now, quick warning, I don't work in your industry, right? I'm in MarTech, I'm in SaaS, right? I don't do ed tech. I don't sell point of software for a weed company. I don't, do a lot of things you guys do. So your metrics might be different. But the one thing I will warn you is if you provide metrics without context, you're not doing anything. You're giving empty calories. What is empty calories, right? I'll give you an example. If you were to say, I care about test coverage just alone, well, what does test coverage mean? How's that quality, right? It's just how much code you've actually done, but like how much testing on the code you have, but it doesn't tell me if that's a good product or not, right? I hear managers ask me, hey, are we good? We wrote 500 test cases. Can we release? What does that mean? What did you write test cases on, right? What about bugs reported? Hey, yeah, we're good. Last month, we only had 46. The month before, we had 500. 46, what kind of bugs? Are they matter? Like, are they big bugs? Are they small bugs? Like, do we care? What's the customer AR, right? Or, hey, yeah, we have 1,000 end-to-end tests. We run every night, 6 hours, high five, we're good. How valuable are these tests? Can you tell me? So I like metrics that give me context. I like metrics that give me something benchmarkable, right? So what do I love? What do I think works, right? Well, the first category, like I said, benchmarkable, right? Like DORA is a good example, right? DORA metrics is something the industry uses to benchmark quality health or just health of engineering or across, from small to big. I like that because it kind of gives me an idea of how we're stacking up. Data with context, right? Something like a velocity metric where I can see quality versus what we're shipping versus what's coming in, right? That gives me an idea of what's going on in engineering. Impact, right? How many high sets, right? High severity, customer reported. This gives me an idea of, what my customer's really feeling. Lastly, actionable, right? Something that I can take away, root cause. Is it code? Is it config? Is it system? Don't worry, I know some of you are taking pictures and you're thinking I'm going kind of fast. I think I am because I'm running out of time, but I will dive into these. Benchmarkable data, right? One thing I adore is Adora, right? DevOps Research and Assessment. It's a survey pulled from 33,000 professionals in all sorts of technical industries, big and small. And what they've done is they say, hey, who's really good? Who's not good? And the people who are really good, how fast, how quick can they deploy? What is their lead time to change from when a PR gets created to production? When something goes bang, bad, 2:00 in the morning, how fast can they restore their service? And what is their change failure rate, right? So every time they ship something versus every time something goes boom. And they have calculated to a dot, like companies are good. What does it look like? Versus companies are really not good. What does it look like? And by looking at your data, you can say, hey, where do we need to improve to get to high? Even though some of this is DevOps stuff, if we get to the high section, quality will just naturally come because your system is just better. Data with context. So one of the things I love is what I call a normalized bug ratio, right? This is a number of bugs divided by a number of PRs. And this is important because this helps me kind of understand the data. We have a lot of bugs. Is that bad or good? Well, did we ship a lot of code? Yeah, we ship tons of code. Okay, well, that's understandable, right? We have a business. We have to ship code. On the other hand, we didn't ship anything. It was everyone's application, and we had a ton of bugs. Holy crap, what's going on with your system? What's going on? Why is there bugs? We're not shipping. That's a huge red flag to me. Impact, right? I think this is super important because these are directly from your customers. A high step 1 or a priority 0, whatever you want to call it, that's your customer telling you this is bad. These are things that you should look at, right? Like, why are we trending one direction or another on these types of bugs? What did we do? What are we doing wrong? And lastly, root cause, right? This one, I think we all do, but it's important. Like one example is we tracked new hires and root cause. And we found that when new hires came, we had a lot more bugs due to configuration. No amount of automated testing is going to catch that, right? That's training. It's a quality issue, but it's a training issue. Maybe we need to slow them down. Maybe we need to look at our new hire rotation, right? But it's not, let's invest in testing. Let's invest in training. So we know our KPIs. Now we got to collect it, right? Jira. I think people ask me. I had to put this slide because people are like, oh, how do you collect this data? Well, Jira, right? Make your fields mandatory. You can collect things like root cause, severity, prevention, SLA. It's good data to have. The one that's hard, I think, is data on deployments. You should always have your finger on the pulse of how fast you're shipping, right? Now, we use Harness for our CD system, so it's easy to pull a dashboard to get this information. But if you don't have the capacity to understand how fast you're shipping, you don't have a manifest, right? Try to figure out, like, can you buddy up with your release team, your SRE team, right? Like, can you figure out how to go into the tooling to find out? Because if you can understand your velocity out, then you have a better context of, okay, well, what is going on, right? Easy to find velocity in the bugs, but without that context of velocity out, like, what's going on? Like, what's really happening? When you get this data, it's important. Like, I think when I first started as like a young engineer, I was like, oh yeah, I love data. I can like just blah, data, right? But what does blah mean? Like, what is in that data? So it's important when you're looking at your data to highlight the trends quarter to quarter, month to month. Is it better? Is it not better, right? And why is it better or not better? What point did it inflect? Did it change? What is the root cause? What was it like? We just introduced a new feature and bam, that was just a bad feature. That team is just trouble, right? What is it? So during the quality service review, like I mentioned, right, you're highlighting your data. You're pointing out what you see is wrong, what's like not working, right? Now it's what I call data to action, right? Now is the time for you to step up and say, hey, I've done my homework. We know what looks good, what looks bad, and we're looking bad. And this is what I'm going to do about it. And this is why I call this data QA, right? Lead off with your analysis of trends, right? Be able to describe where it's failing, why it's failing. And then what I like to do is talk about the initiatives, right? Where's my QE resources being allocated? How are they going to fix this? So we have a huge trend of incidents, say, for integration. And the data I found was that teams don't have integration testing. Like, one team makes an API change in the backend and it completely blows up someone else. And just the teams never talk. So we need to go build that. So where's my QA resources going? They're going to build this, right? This is why we're doing it. This is why it's important. And this is where their time is being spent, right? And this is important because, hey, if you're going to pull my engineers away, or this is why we're going to not do something else, this is, the reasoning, and this is what the value you're going to get. And I think it's also important to showcase, what's your timeline, right? Like, hey, it's going to take us 2 quarters. In this quarter, we're going to do this. Next quarter, that. Things to think about. you want to highlight very clearly the resources you need. So in this case, we're building API smoke test in production. One of the milestones we highlighted is without SRE, we're not doing this because we need them to allow us into that CI/CD pipeline, right? We need them to help us kick it off. We don't have access to that kingdom. So we'll work in parallel to them, but we don't get this. This is not happening. Right. Draw it out, spell it out for your engineering teams. What are you doing? Where's your resources being deployed to? And why is it important? So I think that's pretty straightforward, right? Up until this point, everything I said, probably some of you guys might even be doing this. This is how you roadmap. This is why you're doing it. This is how you're using data. This section is the aha moment for me. I remember when I was, the CTO was talking to me and I was like, yeah, I just delivered the service review. What do you think? And he's like, you failed. And what did I fail on was this part that I've added. It's called the discussion section. Quality is not limited to just quality engineering, right? It's quality should be owned by all of us. And you need to get your leadership team to align on certain initiatives, pledge their own teams to work on things, or just acknowledge that they need to change, right? They need to change course. Whatever they're doing, they're not investing in or they're not paying attention to is hurting the overall quality. And I utilize this section called discussion to loop in other leaders or something to just give a forum over quality, right? The discussion section is probably one of the most challenging and the one that, like I said, I was really bad at because, it's easy to give data, but it's hard to get people to move on something, right? You're doing a call to action, but how do you get that call to action to actually align? So here are some tips and tricks. Set the stage. The first thing is, once again, data and impact, right? Make sure you have actual data gathered to why you want these engineering managers to pay attention. What is the business impact? And why is this more important than other things in flight? The example here we had is there was something that all the engineering teams were doing or not doing. It was causing a lot of incidents. So I had an engineer, actually he's right here, Ryan. He basically compiled every single incident, every single bug, tied the ARR and said, hey, look, when we're doing this, when we're not doing this, this is the cost to our business. How much ARR per customer that are upset per incident, how many engineering hours we have spent to fix this, that we are not spending on other things, right? This is pretty big. This is pretty bad. If we don't do what we need to do here, we don't agree that we need to ask our teams to stop doing this or improve, is this going to keep happening? And this is a real cost. So once you set the stage, right, you want to prepare for discussion, right? I like to ask my team to lead with what you think success looks like. Ensure the goals of what you're trying to solve during the discussion is clear. Here's an example, simple one, right? Our engineering teams never cleaned their bug backlog. So when we did this, the engineer on my team that wrote this slide did a good job, right? He clearly outlined the impact, but he didn't just leave the impact. He actually gave next steps. He's like, hey, let's discuss this, but really, I think we should do A or B, but A is good. What do you think? He's kind of setting this, he's kind of preparing it, right? Like he's already giving you a solution. What do you think? It's not like, what should we do? It's, do you think we should do this? Right? So, hey, let's agree we should do this. Third one is allow silence. I think the biggest challenge is silence when you first start discussion, especially remotely, right? You're like, man, I got the data, gave you a good solution. What do you think? And I'm here to tell you, silence isn't bad. People often need time to think and internalize before they're open for dialogue. And it gives people time to kind of reflect on the content. So don't rush the silence, right? Give it a long pause. People, sometimes want to wait. They want to hear what someone else says first. Just give them time. I do like to facilitate the silence. I talk at a pretty fast clip. So if there's no engagement, sometimes I will prod, right? And things that work really well, right? I love to hear some ideas from people who haven't spoken yet in the discussion. Can I get someone to share your initial thoughts on this? Who's willing to start? I usually don't say that. I usually call someone, like, hey, like, Bob, what do you think? This one works really well for Zoom. It's like, hey, does someone want to post in comments? I can read it out loud. And someone usually posts something. So lastly, remember, even though I call it discussions, it's really a call to action and you want to drive a specific outcome. right? So you want to make sure you get that outcome. Keep on target, right? You are the facilitator. Don't let the meeting get off track, right? Course correct. Make sure you're staying on topic at hand. You got to budget your time correctly, right? There are times when you need to be like, hey, yeah, this is a good thing you're saying over there in the corner, but let's table it somewhere else. Yeah, hey, we got to move forward. We're running out of time. Or this is a very valuable discussion. Maybe I didn't think it through, and I want to hear, what the director of engineering for this team says. Don't forget, it's a good practice to end with an action plan, right? Do not just like, oh, we're out of time. High five, thanks for coming, right? Make sure before you leave, you end with who are the new stakeholders and what are they responsible for, right? Oh, the front end team has, okay, so we agreed the front end team is going to build this by this quarter, right? What is the milestones? Like, so when are you expecting these teams to finish? Or what is the kickoff timeline? What is the next steps? What's the expectation for delivery, right? And it has to be very clear, right? You should be like, this is the work that we're going to do, and this is how it goes towards the quality roadmap that I mentioned. This is what quality is going to be doing at this company, and this is how we're going to do it. And last but not least, align this, right? I always make sure I end with, Bill, head of engineering. Do you agree this is the high-level L1 OKR we should be doing this quarter? Yes, right? We just talked about it. This is, you're saving so much money by preventing incidents, so we should be doing this. And once that happens, that L1 OKR should flow to everyone, every engineering team's L1, L2 OKRs, right? So now you have alignment across engineering over what you're doing for your quality roadmap, right? It's no longer just your quality engineering team, it's your engineering org's roadmap too. So great, you finished the service review, high five, good job, you got the L1, right? Your team's ready, you're ready, mission accomplished, right? Unfortunately, we're engineering, right? And engineering, things don't work, you make mistakes. And we always want to iterate. And here, I guess my last point is, here's like 3 categories that I've seen that really stump people or really kind of maybe I struggled with. And here are some of the things that, I thought about and like I want to share how I dealt with it. The first one, we failed. We launched an initiative. We said we're going to write tests. We said we're going to do this. We said we're going to build some tool. We're going to, check out the vendor, and we failed. Why did we fail? Right. Well, what happens? What should you do? Right? Does it mean you quit? No, I think even if you fail, right? Some of the things to think about, it's okay. You probably got some wins. So take the small wins, run with it, right? Even if you only got 10% done, that's still a win. Don't just throw it out. Just be like, oh, we give up. Let's pull everyone. Take that win. But make sure you communicate your next steps, right? One of the things that, as a director of engineering for my managers is like, what kills me is if they don't communicate with me why they failed, but what they're going to do next. So think about it. If you did fail, it's fine. Communicate. We failed, but we're going to do this and why. And this is what we're going to do instead, right? Don't forget to create a retrospective. I love retros, right? Let's talk about it. Hey, what did we do poorly? What can we do to improve, right? And in the future, take it. Include your learnings. I had an engineer once that, caused an incident, and she was like, oh man, I caused an incident, like worst day ever. I'm like, this is the best day ever. I love it because now you will always know what it looks like, the precipice of what happens when you fail. So you'll catch it earlier. Second category is bad hypothesis. Man, we were wrong, right? We're wrong because it could be your data, right? Did you look at the wrong thing? And in this case, it happens more often than you think. It's fine, right? But at least talk about it. Why was your data wrong? Wrong query, wrong table, wrong information? Figure it out, right? And make sure you don't make the same mistake. I know that's easy to say, but I've seen teams like, oh yeah, we write bad queries. Okay, yeah, it's an incident. Don't do it again. Oh, we have another incident. What happened? Bad queries. Did you not learn? Right? As long as you learn, that's the thing. If you don't learn, that's terrible. And then if you do have a bad hypothesis and your data is wrong, do you still go forward, right? Like, tell me, does this initiative still make sense to run, given that we had bad assumptions? Sometimes it still makes sense, just maybe not as much impact. Sometimes it doesn't make sense because it's completely wrong. So be clear about that. Lastly, prioritization changes. This is, something happened, like everyone's getting pulled away. big fire or some customer or a riff, right? So in this case, it's okay to recalculate how to scale, right? Does that make sense? I lost 2 engineers. Should we still do this, right? Maybe don't jump onto a new project, right? Without understanding, like, one of the things that I see is like, oh no, we lost 2 engineers. What are we going to do with the last 2 engineers? Let's just do something else. What are you doing? Is that important? Like, should you just jump to something else, right? And then I think in general, right, it's always good to have a backlog of projects that you're going to do based off impact and be able to communicate that, right? Like, hey, we said we're going to do this, didn't happen, we lost 2 engineers. We're going to do something else, and this is why, right? Having that ready in your back pocket allows you to move forward very, very smoothly. So let's recap. Takeaways from today, right? Quality roadmap should be easy, but it's struggles, right? Like, it's hard. So how do we make sure our quality roadmap is good, that we have direction? Define success, right? Very clear. First thing always, what is success? Why does this matter? Do we all align that this is important, right? Back that up with data. Be very clear on the metrics you're going to use. How are you going to use it? How does this point? What are the trends used? Be ready. Third, ensure everyone is on board. I think this is the biggest thing, right? A lot of times quality is kind of pushed to the corner and we're like, oh man, like, it's us versus the world. We kind of got to do the right thing. Let's put our head down. No, get everyone on board. This is why what we're doing is important. I can show you the money. I can show you the engineering hours. I can go toe to toe with product on prioritization, right? And once you have that, right, don't be afraid to iterate, right? Don't be afraid to review for growth. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're right. But how do you know, right? If you're not quite there, how do you course correct, right? And this cycle is a great way to keep driving your quality program forward confidently. So with that, I'd like to remind you guys, right? Connect the dots piece by piece, right? This is a great tool to help you review and drive effective quality road mapping. With that, thank you. This is my LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to me, I'd love to take questions and appreciate it.